Hey everybody, I'm getting set up here, so come on in while I try to get this entire painting in the frame, and I'm not sure I'm going to be successful. This is something for me to learn for next time, right? Yeah. Let's see. Alright, forgive me for a second while I shift things around. If you get vertigo, then perhaps stop watching for a moment. Yeah, that would be me right now. Anyway, let's see how I can do this. Nearly there. And while I get this set up, you can listen to the workmen in my yard remove massive trees. I'm glad to have this distraction because I didn't know they were coming today, and it makes me really nervous to watch them take them down. So far, so good. They haven't taken out any fences or neighbors' homes. That's a good thing. All right, let's see if that'll do it for us. Better, better. All right, I'll try to keep it centered and I'll just start painting. Thanks for being here. This is Trish Time. I'm going to try to save this painting. First, I want to tell you exactly what I've got going on here, because I think you all can identify it would just look different in your studios. But this, in my opinion, is a massively sussed painting. I have layer upon layer upon layer of attempts to take it in a direction. And I continue to throw it in the back corner and then pull it back out thinking I have the perfect idea exactly what it needs, and it won't go there. In this case, with encaustic, I've taken many different directions. Sometimes I scrape the whole darn thing off and start again, although I confess that's rare. It's probably what I prescribe to students the most, but in terms of my own practice, it's the thing I do the least. I can't quite explain why, other than maybe I have an aversion to waste. Oftentimes that wax that gets melted off is somewhat grotty and can't be reused. So more often than not, what I do is build up and continue to create, and what that offers is all the underneath paintings that are sussed become beautiful imagery, depth that shows through the encaustic. So I think that's also what I count on. I count on those underpaintings that I considered garbage to become stories that show underneath the surface. And for the most part, that tends to work for me, although in this case, it is not. This is the second one that I've done in this attempt in this format. It's an 18 by 24 that I'm trying to save. And the other one got far enough that I felt like perhaps I can do this one live with you guys and get it to a place where I feel equally as satisfied. The other one is not done yet, but I'm going to see if I can do this with you here watching. No nerves. And bring it at least to a point where I feel more comfortable with what it looks like. And I am going to start with melting, but I'm not melting the entire thing off. What you're hearing and now seeing is a massive propane torch. I'm using this rather than my butane torch, which I do prefer when I'm painting in encaustic, simply because when I use it for fusing. Using this propane just because it has more power to it, more oomph, more kick that will melt this down and heat it up faster. I'm going to keep playing, just kind of side story going on here while it melts. I'm going to keep playing with my equipment here and get a better tripod so that when I am doing this with all of you live, if you have questions to ask, you can ask them and I will answer. But right now, because I have a tabletop tripod and I am working underneath it for the most part, I can't see if any of you are asking questions, so forgive me if I am not answering. I'm not ignoring you, I simply can't because I don't know their questions. But I'm working on that because I really enjoy sharing what I'm doing with you here, even if just one of you watches. It's just a fun way to know that people are interested, I suppose, or a fun way for me to share. knowing that, or pretending at least, there might be somebody there watching. Okay, so what I've done, you can see, I started at the top and I'm starting to get things melting down. And my only motivation here, other than perhaps fumigating my home with the smell of wax, good grief, is to move the wax and to basically obliterate any composition I had going on already. So I am purposely letting it melt and swim down the surface, tipping it ever so slightly, but in a more controlled manner. I don't want to, just compositionally, I don't want to end up with drifts. So, so I am working to keep them out of it. And that's why the gentle tip and the continuous motion of the torch across the surface. I'll lose a little bit of the wax. It will spill off toward the end here. But because I'm controlling the heat and because I'm controlling the tip, I have preserved most of the wax over the surface of that board, this board, the 18 by 24. Let me get this off now so we don't have all this background shushing. I've preserved most of the wax, and now it becomes quite lovely. Not my style necessarily, but quite lovely for me as a starting point. And I can tell you some of what's going on behind here, just so in case you're interested. This began with the bitumen on the board, which I do a lot of, and we've been working on in encaustic kits. If you're interested, check out the shop on my site, and you can learn more about encaustic kits. But a lot of that has been going on in the encaustic kits for this quarter is with the tar. So that's what you're seeing underneath. I started this whole painting, the original intent of this painting was done with that bitumen as a start. That is tar. And then I came in with white, and then I tried to work color into it. And darned if color isn't where I go naturally right now. So I again put a bunch of titanium white blend. It's a blend I like to do over the surface. And then came in with more color with PanPastel. I completely sussed it once again, and that's what you just saw me torch. I think there was yet even more intermediate layers of trying to rectify that painting, trying to resurrect it, but I can't quite recall what was in there. So that's what we're looking at now, and that's what I melted down through. These colors, this streaming going on, is one of the beautiful effects of the bitumen, the tar. It will blend and melt and incorporate itself into the tar, into the encaustic wax, even though it's dry on the surface. I really like that about working with tar. So at this point, just as with the other 18 by 24 I told you I've been working on as well, I'm going to come back with more paint. And sorry, this could get a little bit boring to watch, but I do need to do this so I can get to the PanPastel. I want to apply one more layer. I could come in now, but I'm afraid I'll just end up hating it again. So I'm going to come in with one more layer of my blended titanium white, and I'm working more quickly just to keep boredom watching paint dry, so to speak. No, watching paint be applied can't be all that exciting. I'll move it a little bit more quickly than I would necessarily if I were doing this just all by myself. I usually have a conversation going on in my head too, speaking to the painting as well as myself about what I want to do with the painting. But that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen out loud. And I can't keep my mouth shut, so I can't listen to myself or the painting at this moment. But I'm going to do my best, knowing that y'all will hang out long enough to see me go at the PanPastel here momentarily once I get this paint down. Now, because this titanium white has been diluted and I have tinted it with various other shades, it's not a true titanium white, but I have diluted it so you can see that underpainting, can we call it that? That undermelting is still evident through the layers. So now, excuse my snuffing nose, it's cold here. And I'm in a big stone house. It doesn't like it, so you heat it. Now I come in with my lovely Iwatani torch, butane torch, and just give it a quick fuse, which is necessary and encaustic at each added layer. Give it a quick fuse so that I can let it cool down just a bit and begin to work my PanPastels over the surface. All of my supplies are on a resource page on my site if you are interested. Check it out. I honestly just lost memory of where I have that page, but I believe it is under the shop, under the big box shop information, so you can find it there. Alright, this is satisfyingly smooth and not too transparent and not too opaque. I like how this is looking for a background, even if I don't like how I've used the color. Still, I'm going to bring in my stencils now. And I intended to use my all-time favorite stencil with Stencil Girl products, which is one of mine, but I don't have a copy of it here. I don't have one of my own. I went looking for it, and I think I've used it with students so much I ended up having to toss it in the bin because it had been so overworked with wax and what have you. It is circles. It is what I call drips of wax. If you go to stencilgirlproducts.com, you will see it on the site under my designs, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of other artist designs there as well. This is another one that is mine. It's honeycomb design, and I'm tempted to give it a try on this, but I have circles in mind for what I want to produce, so I'm going to set this aside. But I wanted you to know my intention was to use a Stencil Girl product stencil. I'm sorry, I really wanted to show them off because they are so beautiful, and that circle one that I created offers so much variation you don't feel like you're using a stencil. But instead, because I am somewhat married to this idea of using stencils here, I'm going to use this piece of, come on, this is when I need a live audience here with me, Punchinella. There we go, to help me with the memory recall. I'm going to use this strip of Punchinella along with one of the Stencil Girl products stencils, the small one, and I think this is Mary Beth Shaw's own design, but I can't remember back in the original. Comes in a full size as well as a small one, but I'm going to use them together so I get variation of circle size, I think. And where I start, so this is a warm surface. You just saw me fuse this wax, so it's still very much warm to the touch, although growing cold rapidly in my cold home. And now, so what I'm trying to do is get this to stick down just a bit so that when I use PanPastel I don't get too much seepage underneath, although I welcome it. For me, that's a good thing, not a bad thing, because I like how the seepage looks. I'm coming in with my color, and I'm sticking with these because they play well with the underpainting colors that I had going on, even though I confess that I didn't love them all. I am still going to try to incorporate them over the top of the surface just so that I have some consistency. I mean, it only makes sense, right? This is actually a little bit darker. It is one of my favorite, magenta extra dark. I think we played this game last Wednesday when I did this. Only different. Alright, so a few of this color going on. And now the beauty of PanPastel with encaustic, the ultimate gorgeous, is coming with another color and blending these colors over the surface. I don't know if you can see from where you are. I'll hold it up in a moment, so perhaps you'll be able to capture it on camera. I'll be able to capture it so you can see it on camera. But these colors blend beautifully, noting that I did not fuse yet. I don't need to, I'm not done yet. But they blend beautifully over the surface of the wax, one into the other, incorporating and blending so that you get, well, I don't even know what to call that, it's just the gorgeous blend of color, one with the other, not the stark, flat, individual colors, but the blending. All right, a little bit more because this will highlight it even further. Yellow ochre. So beautiful. So I am still down here in the teaching studio at my encaustic castle in Lexington, Kentucky, working this. But I'm getting closer to moving myself back up to my own private studio, and in the process of doing that, which I hope will be happening in the next month, I want to take you on a Periscope trip up there. So look forward to that in the somewhat near future. I want to show it to you in the state it's at right now, and then anticipate sharing more with you as I get each step of the process of reclaiming the third floor of this castle as my studio. I want to take all of you on that journey with me to see it happen, and I'm really pleased with where it is so far. I'm going to add a little bit more here while I talk. I'm coming back in with that gorgeous magenta extra dark because it can play back over, as you can very well see, that gorgeous yellow ochre. Alright, but back to the private studio on the third floor. We've gotten the blown in insulation in, and I'm trying to get to where I can start replacing windows, and then it comes to the sheetrock. And the motivation or the goal is to have that done by the autumn so that we can start hosting artist residencies up there. That's another something for y'all to look forward to. If you're interested in doing a residency, short or a little bit longer term, start contacting me. We can open up the conversation and see what that can look like. But I hope for that to happen autumn of this year, 2016, with shorter ones happening intermittently until then. But yeah, contact me on my website, pbsartists.com. All right, so, whoops, I'll do a couple of these just because it can be interesting to see the different shapes and sizes. I didn't press this into the surface, so I'm just going to dab very gently. Not a Cam Newton dab, just a PanPastel dab. Yes, I did just say that. All right, a little bit more up here. I'll just have this come across so you can see the effect of the different stencils. I mentioned last Wednesday when I did this that these PanPastels blend beautifully over the surface of wax without a stencil. I'm just using the stencil because it affords really a cool opportunity to see the effect so much more readily. So once I remove that stencil, you can see how the PanPastel is just vibrantly alive and beautifully toned over the surface of the wax. So that's why I love them. And the stencil as a teaching tool is a great example for showing it off. Now, I do have a reason I'm adding more here when you obviously don't need to be watching this. As I said, I'm trying to save a painting, not just show a technique. So I'm very quickly trying to add a few more of these and carry the circles across the surface because I'm going to try to create a composition that I can be pleased with. All right, so this is my added surface. That means I need to fuse again. In encaustic, we fuse between each added layer. This is an added layer even though it's not wax. I said I'd hold it up too. See if you can capture, or the camera can capture without me looking at it, that the blend of color that PanPastel offers over the surface of the wax. And if you can also notice that it's dull, no, dull's the wrong word, flat, matte. The surface of the PanPastel is matte, and now when I come in and fuse, it will go shiny, it will go gloss. And that's what I'm looking for when I add that layer of PanPastel, to tell me that it has adhered or been absorbed by the waxen surface underneath, and therefore it is solidly embedded, encased in the encaustic and won't move on me as I continue to work this painting. There is still risk though, I won't lie to you, these pigments are still very much on the surface of the wax, and if I were to come with wax right now and apply another layer over the PanPastel, there's a very good chance that it would move. So as a precautionary, I always let this cool completely, and then I come with more wax. And I tend to dab more than drag my brush when I'm coming over something that I've added this way in a loose pigment, having much more success in controlling it when I choose to do that. I see a few more things I must do to this. This isn't quite satisfying enough. I have no idea if it will bring me to a finished painting, and I'm not going to do the entire process here with you, but I will do a little bit of this simply because it exemplifies how you can blend the PanPastels without a stencil. Get the effect of both. And also, assuming this part of the painting is on camera, as I came through this magenta with the raw umber, I pulled it a bit. So that's evidence that, yes, I have fused it to the surface, but it is still wanting to move a bit. So keep that in mind as you work with the PanPastels. They are a loose pigment. I even love the little line where I captured the edge of that stencil and came over. It's just a really neat edge to work with. I don't like, for me, I don't like the precision that perhaps some of you would ascribe to when using a stencil like that. You wouldn't have let these half circles happen, and perhaps you're frustrated with me for having left them. It's just my style. Thank goodness for variety, eh? Individuality, unique. All right, a little bit more. Am I boring you to death yet? And like I said, I look forward to being able to answer questions at some point once I find a different tripod to use. Suggestions taken. It is, of course, on my iPhone that I am broadcasting this. Look at how they blend. It's just so much fun. And I'm using the soft applicator tools. I meant to run up and grab out of the third floor one of the tools. It's actually a handle that with replaceable tips that can do very fine work. And I was going to try to be precise and show y'all how I could just fill in those little circles without all that overhang, but I didn't. So you're getting my overhang love. Again, I'm going to fuse. And as the wax picks up that PanPastel, it gets deeper. You can see the color of the PanPastel as it's absorbed by the wax gets darker. That's just the effect of the wax absorbing into those PanPastels. Natural, getting wet, if you will, but then staying wet. All right, but it's not wet. I'm just confusing you now, so I'll quit talking. All right, a little bit of that. It needs some of these because I like these. A technique I love to do. And sizing. It just plays well. Don't know what this will become, but I'm feeling it get a little bit juvenile. It's fun. Shall we be flowers? All right. Because my nose requires blowing, I'm going to stop there. This is going to go somewhere. This is leaps and bounds better than where it was before. It is nowhere near comfortable yet, but at least I feel like I can go somewhere and I'm not absolutely frustrated by it. And the beauty of that came from using color in a more deliberate and intentional way with the stencils and PanPastel, and giving myself the liberty, the freedom to melt my wax, which for me was something I wouldn't have done had I not been going live with you guys. So I'll thank you for that. Next week, I have one more technique on Wednesday to share with you. I'm going to have some guest artists in studio, and I'll introduce them and see if they have something to add to it. But next week there's one more technique with PanPastel I'd really like to show you, and that is building depth of color through layers with elements in between. So I'll demonstrate a buildup of light to dark color with image transfers and bits of collage in between, just so you can see how beautifully PanPastel gives you deep, dense color through layers of wax, and it lets you have that beautiful ethereal layering depth of color and imagery that is so indicative of encaustic. So we'll do that next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Trish time. And in the meantime, check me out at pbsartist.com. In the shop, like I said, is the encaustic kits, which goes into a lot of this during different months. Shoot me some questions if you have any. We start a new quarter of encaustic kits in April, and enrollment has just opened. I will only take 20 students because I'm trying to control the learning curve. I have a lot to learn with doing live presentations and working with groups online, and this will be the second quarter of doing that. So second quarter will be better than the first, but still in a learning curve. So I invite you all to check that out and join me. We're up to 12, so that's just 8 spots left, and really like to have you all along. Thanks. Enjoy yourself. Go paint, and if you can, make it in encaustic.